Hey guys, so chapter 1019 of One Piece just came out, and this chapter actually marks the 24th anniversary of One Piece. And this special occasion is, of course, marked with a few special things this time around. The first of which is One Piece was actually on the cover of Shonen Jump this week, picturing Luffy in what I assume to be an Olympics get up, obviously because the Tokyo Olympics are happening soon. And I believe One Piece will actually be on break next week because of the Olympics. And in this particular outfit, Luffy is wearing, well, there's like a little patch with a Japanese flag on it. So I assume that's what's going on here. I don't know. I don't know what like the Olympic uniforms look like, but I assume that's what this is. But maybe not. I don't know. There's also a Where's Waldo and Luffy collaboration. Which there's a lot of little Easter eggs around. It's of the pretty much the entire raid of Onigashima right now, but there's also a bunch of other characters thrown in there, which is cool. But obviously, since there's so much, I'm not gonna go into too much detail about this. Although what I will say is that I did find Waldo, but there's actually two Waldos, and the second Waldo is actually Bon Clay in a Waldo like outfit, I guess. So that was pretty cool. Nice little reference there. And last but not least, there's also a color spread this week, which features the Straw Hats all riding a bunch of whale sharks. And Luffy, Usopp, and Brook are actually riding Jinbei, who, as we know, is also a whale shark fishman. So that was pretty cool. And maybe my favorite part about this is the fact that Franky has a whale shark hairdo, which kind of gives me, Zoe vibes when he had the normal whale hairdo. She obviously, mimicked the tree at Zoe. So that's a pretty cool one. But getting into the actual chapter now, it starts off with a bit of a checkup on a bunch of different characters. First, at the battle between Sanji and Queen, Sanji unleashes, not Sanji, Queen unleashes an entire barrage of the little lasers there. And, Sanji, remarking on the fact that Franky would like to get, probably like to get his hand on that technology, which Franky will also be important later in the chapter, but we'll get to that when we get to that. We also see Zoro briefly as he's about to get administered the drug, the injection, the mink revitalization super healy thingy-majig, whatever it is, that's going to get him back into the fight. And of course, and the Polar Tang, we know from last chapter, 2 chapters ago, that Luffy had been saved. And the Heart Pirates, that's what they're called, are, debating whether to give them, an injection or medicine or whatever, to get Luffy back in the fight. And Luffy naturally rejects all of that in his typical fashion in favor of meat. So at some point, I assume he's going to gouge himself on some meat, or gouge something on some meat, and get him back into the fight as per usual. I guess it depends on how big the fridge in the Polar Tang is, or else they might have to get some meat elsewhere to fully revitalize Luffy's strength. But we'll have to see. But now getting on to the big section of this chapter is, of course, Franky versus Sasaki. And in a similar fashion to how we saw Jinbei and Who's fight play out, we see a lot of the random gifters and stuff, the members of what is it, Sasaki's Armored Corps, I think they're called. They're all, obviously turning on the pleasures and waiters and all the other various random Beast Pirate members that are around. So yeah, they give Franky an opening to actually focus on Sasaki. Again, much in the same way that, like Poker and the other guys over at Jinbei's fight allowed him to focus on Who's Who, which now gets into, which allows us to see the fight play out in full. Well, maybe not in full. I don't know if the fight's actually over, but we'll get to that when we get to that. We do actually get to see Sasaki's hybrid form this chapter, which is pretty cool looking. It's massive, I want to say, because think about how big the Franky Shogun is. That the Franky Shogun alone is already pretty huge. I I don't know. Is it? I want to say it's like the size of a giant, but it's definitely it's up there. It's pretty big, um, and Sasaki easily dwarfs the Franky Shogun. Um, in his hybrid form, and we see him take out his sword, and also in a similar fashion to Who's Who. As Who's Who, he had a scabbard as well, but he took out the sword, and it was actually revealed to be just a tiny little dagger. Sasaki's sword is actually more of like a drill type thing. It has a bunch of little like razor blades on the side. And they like rotate around and create a Karakuri helix sword. So he goes to attack Franky with that. But also his the big like spiky like guard thing that's like around a triceratops neck. That starts to rotate also, and Sasaki starts flying like a helicopter. I think he officially called the move the triceracopter or something like that. I forget. But yeah, he flies now, which is such a ridiculous thing. But yeah, that's pretty cool. And I just wanna. It's times like this, whenever a devil fruit has the ability to fly, that I instantly remember Pell back in Alabasta saying, "Oh, you've witnessed a rare sight. There are only 5 flying devil fruits in the world," and just thinking about just like every other devil fruit has some way to fly at this point. Luffy is flying with his Goma Goma no Mi in Gear 4th, and now a Triceratops fruit has found a way to fly. So, like, at this point, I think that sentiment of there only being 5 flying fruits is very much false because Sasaki, a Triceratops of all things, has found a way to fly using his devil fruit. So that's something, I guess. But yeah, he uses this attack. He takes out a bunch of the random gifters, headliners, whatever that are around, and also goes in for a big strike on Franky. Uh, he goes in for like he gets on all fours and gets ready for like a big charge. Gonna propel himself forward with the helicopter propeller thing. Franky takes out his general shield, which is like one of the shoulder plates that he like sticks on his arm, and it's like it's smaller than the arm itself. I think we saw that back when he fought like Baby Five and whatever the other guy's name is. I actually forget. Was it Dacian? Or is that just what he says? I have no idea. The guy who had like propeller things, which pretty much, now that I think about it, is pretty much what Sasaki has replicated here, on top of being a dinosaur. So I don't know. You know how there's like upgraded versions of like devil fruits, like Oda actually like confirmed this in an SBS that like certain devil fruits are like upgraded versions of other devil fruits, or like the natural progression of devil fruits. Like the chili fruit, Aokiji's fruit, is obviously like the natural progression of Monet's Snowso fruit. And a more obvious one would be like the Tun fruit is the better version of the Kilo fruit, and so on and so forth. I think it was stated that the Baby Five's like arms fruits, where she can turn into any weapon, is better than Mr. One's dice fruit, where he can only turn into a sword, obviously. Stuff like that, where it's like the 2 similar fruits, but one is like objectively better than the other. So that makes me think that maybe the ancient Triceratops, or the ancient dinosaur fruit, model Triceratops, is actually the natural progression of that one guy's rotating neck fruit thing, propeller fruit. I forget everything about that character's name, what the actual name of his fruit is. But yeah, maybe. In any case, he lines up for an attack. He accidentally spins the wrong way, sending himself backwards. And he's like, "Oh, I meant to do this. This is just to get a bigger run up, to get more force." And Franky obviously calls him out on that. But yeah, goes in for a big attack on Franky. Franky suplexes him, which is I mentioned this back in a kids fight. with when Kid was up on the roof with the other supernovas. Kid in his punk rotten. I forget what the big robot thing is called. It might be punk rotten, but I feel like that's also a name of his one of his like smaller attacks. So I could be wrong. Whatever his big robot scrap thing form is, he suplexed Kaido in his dragon form when he was in that form, and I remarked about the fact of how only in One Piece you'll see like a giant robot suplexing a dinosaur or a dragon, and it happens again with two different characters, which is funny to me. So Franky suplexes Sasaki in his big dinosaur form. So yeah, he also goes for a big victory v Flash, which we saw earlier a few chapters ago, that was an attack that he actually landed on Sasaki. And we actually see when he goes into his hybrid form that there is like a big scar or like a big bleeding V on his stomach from where he got hit from that attack. But yeah, with his Helix sword, Sasaki is able to destroy the Franky Shogun sword and goes in for a big another one of the big Tricera bullets, propeller attack things. I don't know what to call them. Which Franky responds to with a Gaon cannon, which seems to do a lot of damage to Sasaki. And his eyes go whited out for a moment as he's falling up to the sky, but he comes back just for a moment, enough to launch a big Tricera bullet thing from above onto the Franky Shogun, and the Franky Shogun gets pretty much, it looks like, just completely crushed by this attack. But we see that Franky has already ejected himself from the Franky Shogun and launches a radical beam in his normal cyborg form on Sasaki. And we see Sasaki get knocked down while Franky is still I don't know, standing, I guess. Again, same with what I said at the end of Jinbei and Who's fight. I'm hesitant to say this is the end of the fight. I don't know. I'd honestly be more willing to say that it was the end of Jinbei and Who's fight, just because we got 2 full chapters of that. But we've only got 1 chapter of Sasuke versus Who's Who. Sasuke versus Who's Who. Sasuke versus Franky. I completely blanked on his name for a second there, which makes me think that we might be getting a bit more of that, but who can say, really? But yeah, I mean, I guess we did get a bit more of the fight back when Sasuke was back in his normal Triceratops form, so maybe, but I don't know. I'm hesitant to say that these fights are over already. I don't know. Since Wano is such a giant arc, it makes me think that the fights should be a bit longer than other fights have been in the past. Obviously, like a 2-chapter fight isn't like short. I feel like that's pretty average for what we get. I don't know. Like I feel like at Amy's Lobby, like I feel like the fights are probably no more than 2 or 3 chapters. But maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. So maybe this is the end. I don't know. But it does seem like a lot of the Toby Roppo are possibly dropping. Obviously, Who's Who and all. Well, Who's Who is out of the fight, but I meant to say Page 1 and Alti. I don't know why I keep saying Who's Who in fights with other people's names. But Page 1 and Alti were obviously already defeated. And then last chapter, we saw Who's Who get taken down by Jinbei. In this chapter, it seems like Sasaki may have also just been taken down by Franky. So the Toby Roppo are dropping. I don't know. But again, it does seem a bit fast, which is strange because, again, this is like the longest arc in One Piece already. And you'd think I'd be, happy to get a few chapters of a fight and just kind of move on. But for some reason, I'm just like, yeah, I could use a bit more. Maybe that's also just because I enjoy Franky's fights in particular. Both of Franky's fights before Sasuke have been very entertaining. Fukuro and Senior Pink, obviously. And the random squid guy, but I don't really count the Fishman Island matchups because they pretty much were just like pushovers just to show how strong that the Straw Hats had become over these past 2 years. But with both Fukuro and Senior Pink, it was like a slugfest. In they kind of just stood there and took each other's attacks. Them like not dodging or anything, and calling each other's attacks wimpy and whatnot. And we haven't really seen that out of Franky and Sasaki's fight. So I'm wondering if we're going to get that. And if we are, that's obviously evidence of the fact that the fight isn't over quite yet. But I don't know. We really have to see, I guess, on that. But that is kind of like a trademark of Franky's fight. So I would like to see that. Especially since it would naturally, of course, extend the Franky versus Sasaki fight. But with that being said, enough on Franky versus Sasaki, because the last page or two of the chapter, we get to check in once again on Yamato versus Kaido. And on this particular occasion, we get the big reveal of Yamato's devil fruit. I say reveal with air quotes because we don't actually know the name of it. I couldn't tell you what it is. It obviously seems like some sort of animal based on Japanese folklore. It seems very fox-like, but we already have a mythical nine-tailed fox, so I'm hesitant to say that it's a fox. I don't know. A lot of people were speculating that it was a white tiger, that she would have a white tiger devil fruit prior to this reveal, because the white tiger is supposed to be like the natural enemy of the dragon in Chinese mythology or something like that. And this could still be a white tiger. It's not out of the question. It doesn't exactly look like a tiger to me. That could just be, an incredibly, stylized version of it. Obviously, Sasaki's Triceratops hybrid form didn't look that much like a Triceratops. So, I don't know. But yeah, I don't know enough about Japanese folklore, Japanese, Chinese, whatever folklore, to make a guess on what this devil fruit ability is. I saw a bunch of random theories on Reddit and Twitter, but there was none that really stood out to me, and none that everybody seemed to agree on. I saw probably 10 different suggestions or options of what it could be. So there wasn't one that was oh yeah, this one makes the most sense and looks the most visually similar. There were a lot that actually looked similar and a lot that actually had semi decent reasoning behind them. But yeah, since I don't really have any thing to say else on Yamato's ability other than it looks cool, I guess I really have nothing else to say on this chapter. So with that being said, I will see ya.